Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another edition of Infection Podcast. My name is Nick Craig. You can follow me on X at Nicholas M. Craig or visit our website, infectionpodcast.com. I cannot do this alone, hanging out in the old arcade arena. What does it say behind you, though? It says Jaccess. J-A-C-E-S.
Yeah, it looks like it's like G-A-C-E-S-S.
See, that's
AI thinks it means something.
AI is not good with text and is terrible with fingers. If you've noticed that.
Well, they've improved the fingers a lot recently, but there's still, you'll have random legs, because when I had it generate this, there was 3 others that it suggested to me, and one person had 3 legs. Like, they had their normal legs in front of them, then they had another leg crossed over.
Oh, sweet.
And so there's still random little oddities that happen, but it seems like they're doing a lot better on the hands, because that's something with some of the recent ones that I've seen, especially Bing's. I've seen
Copilot?
recently. Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
On there, I saw some sample ones that they suggested, and I wanted to see how the hands were, and the hands were all perfect in that. So I think that they've done some things to improve hands.
Excellent.
Fingers. So,
Excellent.
Hey, if you want to find me, I'll say, if you want to find me at Boise Computer on X or at Brian Aldrin, Gab Getter, True Social, and wherever else. Well, it's a Wednesday. We'll have to figure out next week what you want to do, but
yeah, we'll figure.
And then we're having a baby come here pretty soon, so that may mess with the schedule. Of the show
Brian, there's priority. Hey, hold on a second here. We've been doing this show a lot longer than you've been with your wife. Well, I mean, this is a priority, Brian. I mean, wife and kids, all that stuff is great, but Infection Podcast, we're approaching I think we're approaching 9 years. We started in early January, or maybe it was February, but we're approaching 9 years.
Yeah, it's right around January, February is when we started our first episode.
9 flipping years. That's crazy.
So I'll tell my wife to try to work on the timing of this. So
that's very important. That is very important to me.
Yeah.
And it should be a priority for her as well.
Pretty soon, within 2 weeks. She says any day, because she feels like she's ready to pop.
Yeah,
but we're trying to hold it for a couple more weeks for my dad's birthday, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's going to be a tough one. So as I look at as I go through our website here this evening, I see episode 1 on January the 20th. 2015. How about that for you?
So next year's going to be our 10-year anniversary.
I don't know if we'll make it.
I don't know. That's too long.
It's a long time from now. There's a lot going on. Speaking of a lot going on, Brian, we're building back better from all of the good ongoings, and the video game industry continues. It's funny. We spent the entire show last week doing which, by the way, I got some nice comments on last week's show. I think people really enjoyed it. The research and some of the different things that came forward, I thought were pretty cool. But it is still a market that is being ravaged. And there's this. It's a good article over at Polygon. It's called "The Video Game Companies Laying Off or Creating an Industry Crisis." It's a good article. It specifically highlights one specific company. And it talks a lot about the culture of the video game industry and things like that.
Which has a little bit of bias in there. I mean, if you look at this is things that they've been preaching, claiming, crunch and all that. That's been the way it has been for a long time. That's not what's causing these issues.
No.
They like to try to point fingers because they don't want to point back to the president. They don't want to good old, build back better. They don't want to admit that that's not building back quite better.
Yeah, so let's just read through a little bit. Singularity 6, which is the studio, just one of dozens of game companies that laid off workers in 2023, and its workers are among the thousands of people who lost their jobs this year. This would be last year. Only days after ringing in the new year, layoff announcements started rolling in. Wizards of the Coast canceled multiple projects and laid off a dozen people. Game engine maker Unity cut 300 people. We'll talk about that coming up. Microsoft laid off a staggering 10,000 people, which impacted both Starfield, Bethesda Game Studios, Halo's, and 343 Industries, and more.
I want to make one comment. This particular article is a couple months old, talking about the crisis. So these numbers, there's going to be a lot of new numbers that they're not even mentioning. And just imagine their numbers and add to it. That's going to be the current if they would have written it, this month.
So reading through this. This has been one of the worst years for workers in a long time. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the thing. I get the workers. But let's be honest about this, Brian. The reason these people are being laid off is because the economy is not in really good shape. These game studios and companies are not saying, yeah, everything is great. Now here's your pink slip. They're saying, oh my God, we are really struggling, especially a lot of these smaller studios that don't have, cash cow games where they can just slap a new label on it and it's good to go. They're the ones that are really getting hit the worst. Looking at this, the unofficial tracker suggests more than 7,000 video game workers were laid off in 2023. The tech industry saw a 716% increase in layoffs announced year over year. It's affecting these two markets very heavily, and specifically video games. It goes back to what we've talked about for the last couple of years. Discretionary income is not as easily obtainable as it used to be. I mean, I looked at my checking account this morning and I was like, damn, we're getting down there. Like this is not a level that I like having in my account. It's not like I've been doing anything lavish, Brian.
You're not doing a bunch of extra spending. That's one thing.
Well, I'm doing a little bit of stuff, but it's nothing. But it's I'm not going out and doing bottle service at the local clubs every weekend. It's just expenses of little things here. Obviously, it was just coming off of Christmas. You spend a lot more during the holidays than the rest of the year. But I think a lot of folks are seeing the same thing and going, oh, I don't like where that number's looking. I don't like that I'm below this threshold, this number I feel comfortable with in a checking or a savings account. So that's when they're doing that. You know what they're not looking at buying? A $69 video game.
Yep. And one thing I was checking out at a store here a couple days ago, and just had mentioned something about the cost of food, and that's something that's a huge a family of our size, we go to a fast food place.
Oh my
and
God.
You can't get out of there without spending 40, 50, 60 bucks.
I would say,
and that's not,
you ain't spending 40. You're spending at least 50 or 60.
Well, I mean, let's say that's if you're trying to find a place that has a good deal on a meal. Let's say you go to you go to Taco Bell and you get like those box meals, and you can get some of them that are cheaper. That's if you plan out what you're getting and don't just say, I want to order whatever I want, pick whatever I want off the thing. And you're picking based on what's the best deal. Sure. Maybe you can get away with $40, $50. But if you go and order like you used to back in the day, you're going to be walking out of a fast food drive-through at $60 plus, which is insane to me. Yeah. That's not how this should be going. And but that's the current state. That's where we're at. Is shopping nowadays. You have to be really smart when you're shopping at a grocery store, or you'll walk out of there $400 off of not everything you need. And so it's just kind of crazy. And these are the reasons. They like to blame all these other things, but that's the reason that people are spending less, because when you're spending an extra $60, $70, $80, $90 on food each week, that could have easily been a video game that before would be sitting in your checking account, like you were saying, and be like, okay, well, yeah, we've got extra money in there. I'm getting paid in the next couple of days. We got this extra in there. I'll go buy that video game. And that's the mindset that now has kind of gone away, because that money is they're worrying, will I have enough to pay everything that I need to pay before my next paycheck? That's the where we're at right now. They're not going to turn around and buy these $70 titles.
Grizzard in our YouTube chat is saying the job apocalypse incoming this year. Yeah, I mean, it seems like that's the case. He also says another comment, which I will read. Low-income voters keep voting for policies that make them poor. Well,
it's true, though.
That's a different show, but yes, that is a very accurate statement.
But when you're voting in things that are making it so the dollar's value becomes less.
What, like the Inflation Reduction Act? How dare you?
Yeah, so when you do these things and you're pushing to spend money and print money because you want to have more money in your pocket, you're not the only one getting more money in your pocket. If all these other people are getting this, quotes, air quotes, free money in their pockets, that means the value of your dollar just dropped. So then you need more free money printed to be able to afford the thing that you thought you were going to get with that free money. And it then drops the value even more. And this has been the struggle that Biden can't seem to figure out.
All right, Alex
It's
Jones.
just a mystery to him how our value of our dollar keeps on just plummeting.
Yeah, why don't you go sell your iodine-free toothpaste and your seeds, Brian, with that lunacy, ridiculous political commentary, and that's not how the economy works at all. No, that's exactly what's going on. And you talk about I was out in the mountains on Saturday at an event, and stayed in an Airbnb, got a good deal on the Airbnb, and went into the grocery store. I picked up a case of beer, 24-pack of Miller Lite.
Mm-hmm.
A bottle of wine, eggs, bacon, biscuits, and a bag of potato chips. 6 things.
So a good breakfast.
$56.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the alcohol.
I mean, honestly, the beer is going to be a quarter of that, or at least, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean,
half of that.
Well, no, not even close to that. I mean, a 24-pack of Miller Lite's like $12 or so, or 15 or $16. But I mean, it's just like things like that. It's like, Jesus, $60 for this? It all fit in one freaking shopping bag.
Yeah.
Or two, one shopping bag and then holding the case. Or excuse me, It was a 12-pack of Miller, not a 24. Excuse me, a 12-pack. So it was like $9.
Okay. Yeah, and that's where now all these anything you can hardly get out of the store, and I think people have forgotten. That's the problem. People forget what things used to cost. We have a very short-term memory when it comes to things.
How can you, Brian? You go to the grocery store every week. How do you know? You don't remember what something cost 3 years ago? No, nobody does.
I don't remember, that something if something did cost a quarter of what it costs now, because it so incrementally has gone up, you don't notice.
How would
and that's where we're at. Like, people, if you would have put that price tag, all these price tags, however many years ago, if you would have just thrown them on things, people would be like, I'm not shopping here. This is insanity. And now you're thinking, eggs don't cost me $1 an egg anymore. This is such a good deal. I mean, that's where we're at. It was like a 12 to 24 packs was $1 an egg. They were selling them for ridiculous prices. Like, why would you spend $1 on an egg? But that's
if you like eggs, that's what you were doing.
Look at us normal. We got chickens, and we finally just got rid of them because we moved to a place that can't have chickens. I'm going to try, but I'm not going to do that. So I made
government,
it through all that by
the HOA is holding you down. The HOA is holding you down, Brian. Big government is telling you, you're not allowed to have your own eggs. This is the globalists. This is the New World Order. This is Jeffrey Epstein. This is their whole plan. Hillary Clinton and the devil and Barack Obama.
I know.
This is the whole plan.
They tell me what to do. I just need to feed my family. How can they dare tell me that?
Yeah, well. Welcome to the most local and lowest form of government, homeowners associations. When I bought my house, I was very clear to my realtor. I said I need at least 1 bedroom, a bathroom, and no HOA. You figure the rest out. These are my 3 prerequisites. Anything else is gravy. And
in my old house, I just joined the HOA so that way, if they had any questions about my chickens I wasn't supposed to have, they could talk to me directly. Yeah. I mean, I was a member of the board so that I could try to get more common sense, things pushed. I saw an article come out after I had done that, and they were like, this person joined their HOA as a subvert agent, so they could pass things. And like, how's that being subvert?
You want to hear?
I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm just like, I can go and vote on things that I think the way they should be. If I think you should be able to have chickens in your backyard, then I'm going to join the HOA and I'm going to vote that way. I can push them.
Here's a hilarious story for you. So my buddy moved into new construction a couple of years ago, and big anti-HOA guy. So he became the HOA president and dismantled it.
Yeah.
And literally did abolish the HOA. And it was this big controversy. So he, in fact, was working as a subvert agent. He convinced everybody that he was the man and he got in there and started piecing away at all the people in there. And there you go. Completely dismantled the HOA. From the inside.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, if you could, I mean, with our HOA at the old place, it was like they managed the water for the whole subdivision. There was a lot of things
this
happening,
was not
that
this
would not have happened.
No, this is just like new home
if you're living in a place where,
HOA.
if you're living in a place where you don't need an HOA, get rid of the HOA.
Now, Nissan Communications, our friend Amna makes a good point. Brian, you cannot mention HOA and common sense in one sentence. That is an accurate statement. It's a very
I mean, are you parked the right direction on your street? There.
My neighbors had I've lived in my house almost 4 years. My neighbors had a futon sitting in his driveway the entire time. I don't care.
Yeah,
It just doesn't bother me.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, as long as it doesn't get too crazy, I'm a believer in you should let people live their life until it starts to affect you personally.
Well, and it doesn't. Turns out the HOA sitting in his driveway doesn't really affect my life.
Yeah, or the HOA sitting in his driveway or the futon.
No,
the HOA sitting in his driveway.
No, yeah, you're right. No, there is no HOA. The futon sitting in his driveway. When I freeze my ass off walking to my car at 4:00 in the morning and it's pitch black out, the futon is not
bother you.
Is not top of my mind.
As long as homeless people aren't trying to sleep on the futon, then I'm good with it.
Now I do specifically live in an area where there is none of that. So we'll just leave that there. But so okay, so the human cost of the cost of the video game industry. And Brian, there's this website, I don't know if you've seen it before, videogamelayoff.com or video game
No, I've not seen
video game layoffs with an S.com. And they've got the tracking, and for 2023 they've got the estimated official number at 10,500 as this, and they source all of the various companies and studios.
Now in December that was 9,000, so they almost had 1,000 in just in December alone.
Well, yeah, but that math doesn't add up, because here are the layoffs from December. There ain't 1,000 people there. So these different trackers will have different sources and whatnot. But this is a good one. This is a cool website. We'll keep an eye on. So let's look at 2024. We're just barely into the year. Twitch, which we'll talk about, they laid off 500 people today. Unity laid off 1,800 people. What did you say that was, Brian? 25% of their workforce?
25% of their workforce, yeah.
And that happened a couple
Twitch,
of days ago.
That was 35% of their staff that they ended up. Yeah, the 500 is 35% of their staff
that they laid off. Whatever, some other studio console, I don't know what that is. They laid off no people, and then this.
But it's a part of Embrace. That's one of the Embracer Group's subsidies.
Who is this?
So
I don't know.
So that's another one. They've been just shutting down and laying off like crazy. So Slipgate, so they've one of the studios laid off more people. But yeah, Embracer Group's been going nuts.
Yeah. So that's where the numbers stand right now. We'll bookmark this. We'll keep this in our show notes. So we can kind of keep an eye on it every week. What a cool website. Glad somebody's doing that. All right, so let's talk about these. Let's talk about these two. What's going on over at Twitch?
All right, so Twitch, they cut. No, this is 35% of their staff. Concerned over losses. So they have executives leaving. They're cutting because they're concerned over losses. And this comes down to the same thing we've been saying, discretionary income. Twitch is another one that relies on people feeling like they've got some extra dollars in their bank account and subscribing, giving bits, whatever all these things are, having time to sit and watch streamers, to where when you feel like you don't have extra money, maybe you're not just sitting on your computers watching a streamer all day throwing money at them. I'm sure that they're having issues. They did cut back a little bit on the nudity and all that. I wonder if they cut back even more, if that affected
what's going on.
certain people going there. But this was them. Now they said on this, they're owned by Amazon, so you would figure they wouldn't be worrying about that as much. But Amazon, cut a ton of jobs as well. Amazon had a total of 9,000 job cuts that they've done. This is part of that 9,000 job cuts.
There's another side of this too. Not only is it by the way, the I know it's not nudity, but the explicit content is still alive and well in the just chatting category.
Still rampant
as I check. But the advertising marketplace is also really rough right now, and I'm dealing
companies
with
cutting back on spending, because that's what a lot of this comes down to. Is companies, if they're laying off employees, do you think, and they're knowing that people are not spending money, they're going to cut back on advertising, because if people aren't spending money, what's the point of trying to get a product in front of their face that they're not going to buy or they're not going to subscribe to?
So, we're really struggling with this in the radio industry. You may have seen this week, it was pretty big news. The largest operator of radio stations in the country, Odyssey, they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. They're trying to restructure their debt. Our company, I work for Cumulus. It's not really a secret. We're seeing big time slides in ad revenue because, for a couple things. Obviously, radio's a dying industry. We know that. But just in general, as you noted, you're laying off a third of your workforce. Are you really going to keep your advertising budget exactly how it is? No, you're probably going to cut that in half, maybe by 75%. Still going to do some advertising. You can't ever stop.
Keep the name out there a little bit,
but you cut it way back. Or maybe you pull it off of some services that maybe, like Twitch that you were trying to break into, but, you just don't have the money to do that. So you stick with the platforms that you know. So like those are some examples of, why a company like Twitch would be struggling right now. Because that money's just evaporating. Nobody's got it.
Grizzard over on YouTube, he made a comment here. Twitch was over when they lost streamers like Tim and Doc, and that really was kind of the end because they transitioned from being all about video games at that point to being totally comfortable with the hot tub streamers and that whole different area, which those type of streamers don't want to stay on Twitch. Twitch is just an extra little fishing area that they get people in to pull them over to their OnlyFans or whatever it is that they're trying to push people to give more explicit content. So Twitch isn't getting that cut anyways. They're getting their cut over at whatever other service that allows them to gate and tier the level of what they're going to receive based on the money they give, and Twitch has nothing to do with that. So one thing that you can say about, like, for instance, Dr. Disrespect, he brought a ton of money over to Twitch because those guys were subbing like crazy to his service. They were throwing bits out. He was keeping people on the platform, and I think one of the best things that they could have done if Twitch wouldn't have gone all woke is to have catered to Dr. Disrespect and really encourage the use of their platform. I mean, because that's what he was all about. He was all about trying to market for Twitch.
Yeah.
He would push Twitch. He was the opposite of the new person that they catered into this environment that's trying to get everybody away from Twitch. And they're just trying to pull people from this area that maybe wouldn't see them any other way. And that was them shooting themselves in the foot. What do they expect? They catered to the wrong people. The person that was their best hype man, they threw to the wall. Well, they pushed him somewhere else. There was no reason they should have cut him. He didn't do anything ridiculous other than he was working out deals, probably because they refused to work out deals with him, when it kind of all came out. So Grizzard says, someday maybe Doc will tell what really happened. I think what happened was he was trying to work out a deal on the side, to make more money, and they got pissed about it. But, who knows? There could have been something, but the fact that it's never really been officially said, it must have not been a big enough deal for them to have done what they really did, because nothing has come out of it. He's still streaming. He's still doing very well.
So, and it's funny, as you were talking, I was just scrolling through Twitch and looking at some people like, Summit is still streaming on Twitch. He's got 7,000 people watching him.
Yeah.
That's nothing compared to what he used to have. He used to pull 15, 20,000 viewers. He's got 7,000 people watching him right now.
Yeah. And that's, compared, but he's one of the bigger ones, I bet you, in the whole space.
Well, not anymore, apparently.
Well, but are there a lot bigger numbers ahead of him in that?
Oh, yeah, big time.
Category? Like, what's the highest sized rooms that are actually doing video game streaming?
There's a guy streaming Tom Clancy Rainbow Six Siege right now. He's got 42,000 viewers.
Yeah, that's crazy. So there's still some people that are pulled in numbers.
Yeah, EA Madden is doing a tournament right now on Twitch. That's got 40,000. Capcom is doing a fighting tournament that's got 32,000. And then you get down, into you get down to the 20s, and so there's still Lil Tyler 1. He's got 25,000 people playing League. People are still watching. It's just it's a different platform.
Well, and so here, one thing, we know that Twitch and Amazon, what they're trying to do, and here's what they claim is they want to make the streaming site a sustainable and viable long-term business, because it's very susceptible to advertisers, like just because of the platform. But there's not really a good way for them to guarantee income in this environment. It's just not set up that way. It very much comes and goes based on how people are doing financially, how corporations are doing financially, and whether or not they have that discretionary income to throw at advertising or to throw at streamers. And the ones that do the best are the ones that are the most dangerous and really damage your brand. And that's the hot tub streamers or the ones that are doing whatever else. It doesn't have to be in a hot tub, but those are the ones, because in history, that's the business that seems to have always struggled the least. I'm not calling them prostitutes, but that sells, right? Regardless. And so, are they going to decide to go? They tried to go that direction, I think, as a way to save their business, and realized they were going to destroy the whole brand doing it. We discussed that in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But I think they're still trying to figure out, well, how then, if we're not going to make Twitch an OnlyFans alternative or a gateway to OnlyFans, like, well, how do we continue making money? Well, get back to the video games. Get it to where, you quit restricting people, quit pushing people to these other things, and either focus on one area so you become that gateway, or I don't know what else to do, because I think the problem is what is Twitch anymore? It's not the place you go to, kind of like Steam is the place you go to buy a video game, right, on a PC.
Mm-hmm.
They're no longer the place that you go to watch video game streams. There are people starting to go to YouTube to do that thing where a couple of years ago people wouldn't have considered YouTube a valid video game streaming place. There weren't enough big names there. There was just a bunch of random smaller streams on there, and that's changed. That's no longer the case. So I think they're going to have to figure it out. This is just one of them. We also mentioned their Unity.
Yeah, what's going on over at Unity?
Unity is restructuring, and they're laying off 30 or was it 25% of their staff. Yeah. And this is pretty big. I put a thing in there where they're planning to eliminate 1,800 jobs in quarter one of 2024, and that ended up being what it did, 1,800 jobs. And that they are the exact same problem as these other services. If people are not buying video games, if they're not using their discretionary income on video games, they don't make money, because they're reliant on people or companies selling a video game and then getting a percentage cut of the profits of that video game. If the video games aren't selling, and we'll go through and kind of do a little more rapid fire here in just a little bit of how the industry is doing. But once you realize the state of the industry, you'll understand they're not making nearly the money that they were when video games were hot and selling.
Well,
because they can only make money if a video game sells.
Well, and that's my point. Their whole business model is other people. They're a volume industry. Unity is a volume company. Volume is how they make their money. The more and more games that sell, the more and more money they're scraping little bits here and there. That's their business model. And as you very well noted, when that money drops, they're going to feel it as well, especially because it's such a small margin that they're making on these games. Just like why do you think you go to a restaurant and you see how much food costs? Why is food so expensive? Why is a burger $17 at a restaurant? Because restaurants are very low margin industries. They make their money on volume, and they have to make up for that. There are certain industries that are just really, really low volume. Food, restaurants is one of them, and in this case, Unity's another one in regards to how their business model.
And they made a very similar quote to what Amazon said with Twitch, but they said, they're citing restructures and refocuses on its core business to position itself for long-term and profitable growth. That's why they're doing this. And they tried that, that crazy thing here a couple months ago that ended up freaking people out. But that's what they're trying to figure out. How do we continue to remain viable? Because if we continue on the path that we're going, or divesting, having so many employees, when we're not bringing in the same amount of money, you're going to go out of business and you're not going to have a product at all. So you have to cut back so that you still have a product and you still have a business to be able to hire people when times get better. Because if you continue the way you're going, you won't have a business. So I totally understand what they're aiming for. There's a lot of people that were hired during COVID that need to be let go because they were brought on with the assumption that the video game industry would continue. You know, we'd be locked in our houses for the next 10 years and we would need things to entertain us.
Yeah.
Kind of like, what's that? There's that movie that's kind of a thing about the future where people end up being stupid and, you know, just eating food and sitting in front of a TV. I don't remember the name of it, but, you know, that's where they were thinking we were going, to where you just be, you know, working from home, which, you know, I do, but working from home, everybody would be doing that. And then you would never be going out again and you would need stuff to entertain you at home. Well, that's not what happened. You know, eventually people got out and are living their lives. You know, there's a large population in the United States that's no longer living under this COVID fear, to where they're going out to restaurants and they're going out and doing things, and not everybody's stuck in their houses. And so now they're letting everybody go. Same thing with businesses. Businesses are wanting people to come back into work. All this remote work doesn't necessarily work anymore when people are having to go back. You know, they hired all these people that weren't local, but they want them to come to the office. What do you do if they're unwilling to move?
Yeah.
You let them go. You know, so there's a big set of staff that just didn't, the model that they tried to create because of COVID didn't work. It's not working. So they're having to let a lot of people go. And this is what we're seeing. You know, with Unity, that's a pretty big deal. 25%, that will affect things that they maybe were planning on releasing. Well, I wanted to mention, go ahead.
But before you move, well, not, you know, 25%, yes, but as you noted, 1,800 people, and we have talked multiple times about how Unity, you know, there's essentially two ways that they can go. They can try and compete with Epic, which is going to be really, really tough to do. Epic is still flushed with cash from Fortnite. Now, obviously, that's going to be that number's coming down as well because, again, discretionary income, it even affects a game as big as Fortnite. Or focus on markets that Epic is not really on, and that the big one would be mobile. And to go back to the show from last week, as I look at our show notes and look at the graph that we had forward, or the graph that we had, you know, video games as a number. You know, you look at this chart, Brian, and what do you see in regards to the mobile video game market? Let's see. Well, I don't know why this is so low resolution, but you see, there it is. You see $90 billion, nearly 50% of the market. The global revenue for video games last year was mobile. So maybe this is part of that restructuring that they're not going to necessarily be. And focus on mobile. Why would you not?
Yep. That's where there's huge amounts of money. Huge amounts of money.
It's half the freaking market. I mean, it's half the revenue that these companies are making are on mobile games. And if Unity really owns that space, which I think they do, I mean, you know, there are other mobile engines, but they really own that space. This is where the money is. You can't compete with Epic. They don't have the resources to compete with Epic. They can't compete with Unreal.
One thing I wanted to mention is data.ai. There's an article here. They said the global mobile game revenue has declined 2% to $207 billion in 2023. So that is being affected, but not nearly as much as all the other industries have in the video game market.
It's all going to be down.
Console, PC.
But here's the real thing. Where can they compete? Unity is not at the level that Unreal is. With Unreal's, what is it, 6 that the new one that just came out, or is it 5?
5, but they're starting to talk about UE6.
So 5's the one that just came out, and I mean that the features and the things that they provide in that, it just does leaps and bounds around Unity for certain kinds of games. But and I looked into this in the past. Unreal is not a very good mobile engine for simple mobile games. It's not made for it. 2D games don't really work well in Unreal. It's not what the engine is built for. So hopefully that's where they're restructuring, because I think that can be. And guess what? there are still many games that run on PC, that run on console, that do make sense to be built in Unity. Look at a game like I've been playing, Overcooked. It's a great game to be built in Unity. Great game.
And it makes it a lot simpler to make that type of a game in that.
Yeah.
And the look that it ends up having is a good for that style of game, a good environment to build it in. My wife texted me. Idiocracy was the name of the movie. Have you ever seen Idiocracy?
I don't think so.
You should watch it. It's funny. It's like it talks about the future and how people end up being stupid because they sit in front of their computer their TV just being fed and not learning anything and not interacting with people. So that's one thing I want to mention now. Embracer, this is one we've been talking about quite a bit. The Embracer debt reduced to $1.4 billion as restructure continues. The group says it's laid off 904 people since the process began. Now, this was in November. Same thing. They say the human cost of restructure is significant but necessary, and this is why one of the reasons you've been seeing from Embracer Group over and over and over again these layoffs, because they realize they have to let these people go to remain viable, and they've let off tons and tons of people from these subsidies of them because they can't stay, and they have a lot of companies. They can't just go down with the ship because they don't want to let people go. Their job is to make sure that the company continues and makes it through what we're going through at the moment to be able to thrive when things start getting better.
Yeah.
Which is smart business. And I totally understand where they're going. One thing that they had mentioned just this year, that VR Studio Archaic, I don't even know how to pronounce them, but they're ones that are letting go people just this year. Is one of the first ones to announce in 2024. They're looking at, I think it's a company of like 200 people, so it's not going to be huge. But this is just one of those. We've got another one, ByteDance. They're talking about selling their games business.
That's a Chinese company.
This is under TikTok.
Yeah.
Or actually, this one, I think they're looking at selling to TikTok.
ByteDance is TikTok.
Oh, is that one? Okay, so ByteDance is TikTok. So they're looking at selling to Tencent. That's what it is.
Gotcha. Okay.
They're looking at selling their games business to Tencent because they need to lower their valuation of their studios. And, they're realizing that could take down the ship, right? I mean, that if they're not focusing well enough and they're not going to be viable, it's just wasting money, and it's going to end up taking down other parts of their company that are profitable. So that's another one. Bosa Studios, they're laying off 1/3 of their staff. And this one, they are focusing on their upcoming games, like Lost Skies is the one that they're doing. They only have 40 employees left at that studio. So hopefully they have enough to be able to continue I think that what they're doing is just hoping to be able to make the game or continue progress on the game so that when times are better, they can release it. Hasbro, now this one's interesting. They're letting go of 1,100 positions, and Hasbro is part of Wizards of the Coast, is the parent company, or is the company that really is relying on, which has a lot of the D&D, that role-playing type of environment. But 1,100 positions, that is huge for that type of a company. But that's their video game division of Hasbro. Also, we've got a game studio that ended up going bankrupt. That's Triple Topping. They are bankrupt, and so of course that's making it to where they're going to have to either go out of business or redo things there. We have Thunderful, which is shaking up. I wanted you to look at this. They're shaking up their leadership team. Now they're going all women, which I thought was funny. I'm sure that there was no bias in any of the hiring processes here.
EDI at its greatest.
Yeah. So we'll see how well they do. There's nothing against hiring women, but in an industry, what's the percentage of women in this industry? Very low.
No, it's not. No, that's not true.
In the video game industry?
I bet you I think you're dead wrong about that. Look it up. I think you're dead wrong about that. I think it's a lot higher than you think. I think the issue is you say, hey, we're shaking up our leadership. Let's just only hire women. I think that's a very stupid thing to do. I think, and it would be just as stupid if you said, let's only hire men, or let's only hire this religion, or let's only hire this race. Doing any of that.
23.7%. So three-quarters are male, or over three-quarters. That's what I'm getting at. But, their whole board now is now female.
Well, so but again, I thought it was funny. Yeah. No, and it's the premise of not, again, this is the problem with the EDI and DEI, all of these acronyms. You don't employ or promote the best people. You pick a subset that you're trying to fit or some sort of quota you're trying to fit, and you bring those people in. And that is a very short-sighted, in my opinion, stupid thing to do.
Yes. So another one, Rovio, which do you remember what titles they put out?
Rovio. No.
Remember Angry Birds and all that?
Oh, yeah, that was Rovio. Boy, you talk about a blast from the past.
Yeah. So they have closed the studio.
They don't own that though anymore, do they?
I thought they still did.
Maybe
I don't know if they ended up getting sold off or got purchased and something happened. But so they've closed the whole studio. They said publisher's second Montreal-based developer Studio 6 was not affected in this decision, but they did let one whole studio go. So we'll see. As part of this thing of maybe the title that they were producing, they decided they're not going to produce it. Whatever it is, there's another one.
They do still own Angry Birds, by the way.
Okay,
they're still making Angry Birds games. Apparently, they just came out with Angry Birds Kingdoms in 2023. It's an Android game.
One thing I wanted to mention, Twitch. We talked about the layoffs at Twitch. Mm-hmm. Twitch is ceasing operations in South Korea this year.
Really?
Yes, I think it. Yeah.
On February
27th.
Why?
Of this year. They are going to be ceasing. And if you look, South Korea is one of the main places when it comes to video game tournaments and all of this type of thing. Like that used to be the place where it was at.
Yeah.
And now they found that due to high operating costs, they're shutting down Twitch in South Korea.
Look at this, though. Network fees. They were forcing quality to set, so the bandwidth was just killing them. They were forced bandwidth to 720p, and we're just dealing with incredibly high bandwidth costs in South Korea. Wow.
10 times higher than other countries, which is kind of crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no wonder. I tell you what, bandwidth is expensive already. I mean, even in the United States, bandwidth is expensive. Relative, of course, but I mean, when you're having to throttle connections and have to slim down like this, that's pretty brutal.
Yeah. Another one is this is Embracer owned again. Another one of the Embracer subsidies. Free Radical Design is closing its doors. Another one that's linked to this is PlayOn has PLAION. I assume it's PlayOn. Has confirmed the closure of the Time Splitter studio. So, that's all part of that. That's a whole another game. Time Splitter, I think it was a game that didn't really take off. I remember hearing about it. I never tried it. But that's just part of their restructuring there. Phoenix Labs, which is a pretty well-known studio, they're laying off 34 people there. They did Dauntless, which was a pretty big game that came out. Same thing with EA. They laid off their Codemasters staff. Now that's pretty big. Codemasters, they did, was it racing games? Yeah, F1, I think all those games.
Okay.
But they made some pretty big titles. They did like Project Cars, Grid, Dirt, F1.
Those are some pretty popular games.
Yeah, the EA acquired them in 2021 for $1.2 billion.
That would make sense.
They just let all that staff go.
Well, okay, so the question is, how many of them did they fold into EA before letting them all go?
And that's, this is a round of layoffs. They said there's an unknown number of staff have been made redundant. So, it could be that they brought some people and put them to different titles. I don't know. But they announced that they were in the year. This was last year. They had said that they were laying off 6% of their workforce. EA was. So this is a part of that. Humble Bundle, Humble Games, the part that's under Humble Bundle that makes those games, they're laying off as well. That's discretionary income. I used to spend a lot of money on Humble Bundle, and I don't anymore.
Well, that's why Brian, you're causing those people to lose their jobs. Congratulations. Hope you feel good about yourself.
It comes down to discretionary income. I used to be like, well, we used to do the game giveaway every week and all that, and I'd pick up a bunch of titles to do that. But this is one where people aren't spending the money in those areas anymore. You've got 505 Games. They laid off 30% of their workforce. I think this is, let's see. They made that one that it was like a walking simulator. But remember the guy who had the backpack, or he had the baby, like he had the baby that it would show. Like there's it was really weird.
Talk about that weird space game with the little clicking thing. Yeah, I don't remember what that was called.
Yeah, I'm trying. I played it for a little bit, but yeah, Death Stranding. That's what it was.
Death Stranding, yeah.
So they had Death Stranding. Control was a pretty big game. There were some big titles that came out of them, but they say in the name of operational efficiency. This is what we keep hearing. Variations of the word operational efficiency, making sure that they continue to be a business. Congregate was another one, that part of Digital Bros. That's another section of Congregate and Digital Bros Entertainment, which owns 505 Games, so that was part of that. We also have Firewall Studios. First Contact is shut down, so that's no longer going to be there. So Firewall Studio First Contact shuts down. They were one of the VR ones because they found that VR just hasn't taken off like they expected.
Yeah. Well, I saw CES is going on right now, and I know Apple is, I think, showing off some of their Vision Pro stuff. But man, at the price that Apple's demanding, and I know the Apple tax is a real thing. I'm an iPhone user. It's no secret. And people do and are willing to pay the Apple tax, but only to a certain extent. I don't know that $1,200 for a VR headset is gonna be that though.
Yeah. So that one's same thing. Versus Evil has shut down, and they laid off just a couple days before Christmas. That's Pillars of Eternity, all of those games. The game publisher Versus Evil is shut down, and so the Banner Saga, Pillars of Eternity. I'm trying to think of other. Obsidian, I think, released those, but that whole publishing studio shut down right before Christmas because they couldn't continue to operate. And it's one of those, kind of wish they would have done it earlier. People don't want to let people go. Well, the alternative is the whole company shuts down. Mm-hmm. The whole section of the company shuts down. Another one is 3D Realms. This is one that used to see back in the day. 3D Realms is Slipgate Ironworks, reportedly seeing layoffs there as well. Nearly half of staffers were cut, says Apogee Entertainment, and 3D Realms founder Scott Miller. So this is another one. Comes down to people aren't spending money, or they think that it's going to be a while before people can spend money. Cut back on the things so that you can still be there. Told them that at least half of the company, so we're laid off. So that's pretty crazy. And then one more here: Stray Souls developer Jukai Studios announces closure. So that whole studio is closing. They cite cyberbullying and poor reception and bad sales to shut down. I don't know how you throw cyberbullying in there.
I'm sorry.
We're closing down because of cyberbullying.
I had clicked on most of these. I had not clicked on this, and you kind of caught me off guard with the whole cyberbullying thing. What the hell does that even mean?
They didn't like that people probably said their game was crap or there were problems with their game. Came at them and
cyberbullying.
A studio being cyberbullied.
We did everything in our power to bring the project to completion in the best possible form, but throughout the entire duration, we, our publisher staff, and other publisher dev teams, and very close ones, were constantly attacked by cyber persecutors, and some of you and our community were also tormented with unwanted messages and emails.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I know whatever to push blame.
Yeah, that seems a little far. That seems a little far fetched for me. I'm sorry.
So that's where we're at. One thing I wanted to mention is there's another article I have here in our kind of random.
No Man's Sky could have used that as an excuse. That guy was actually getting harassed, and
instead of getting brought down by it, they came out and actually they maintained their reputation, which was a surprise.
Because I mean, you talk about like actual cyberbullying and harassment. Like that guy was getting death threats.
Yeah, and he came out and he saved his job in the industry, because if he would have walked away from it, like a lot of these places are doing, he wouldn't be someone that could be on a project again without them being bullied out of until they fired him. Because that's happened to a number of other people in this industry. There's Cliff. What is it, Cliff? Who's the guy who did that? Remember that one game? Yeah, when we went to the convention. I'm trying to remember what it was, but
no, you're talking about that weird GTA style kind of game, Cliff Belinsky or whatever the hell his name was.
Yes, and that guy went about it all the wrong ways, and he's going to struggle to get hired at another place,
probably
without people bringing that up. But if you look at with No Man's Sky, he turned around and said, "All right, this was a flop. Let's fix it." And now it's got a great reputation, and he could go to another company or another project and people would have faith in him. Like, that was the way to deal with it. He did it in the right way. A lot of these others don't.
Yes, this is the guy you're talking about, right?
Yeah, that guy.
Lawbreakers.
That was, remember that they had a huge banner across all of PAX.
Yeah.
It was a big deal. They were pushing it so hard, but nobody liked the game. We tried it. Remember when we tried it? It was like you could barely fill a lobby.
I wonder if I probably have video of it on my NAS.
I mean, it wasn't a horrible game, but it just wasn't something that really pulled you in, right? It was
pretty bad.
But that was something, he just couldn't understand it, that people didn't like his game. But, when you try to force your concept, if people don't like it, people don't like it. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. What was that? Was that 2017 or 2018? I feel like that was 2017.
I don't remember.
Can't find. I don't have it.
I don't remember. So Nacon he was interviewed, and he says the industry's problem is there's too many games. Which I don't know if that's necessarily the problem. The problem is not that there's too many games, but when people are picking and choosing what they're going to spend their money on, if they're picking one, they're not picking the other. And when you have a lot of games out there, that means another game is not making that income that you're relying on to stay afloat. And so there could be that there's too many games, or it could be that the economy is just too bad to support that number of games.
Yeah.
Because when the economy's good, it's not too many games, right? They're still pushing the blame to the wrong place. It's not that the studios are creating too many games, is that people are not willing or able to purchase those games right now. Because this number, when the economy was good, let's jump back to the Trump years, the number of video games being produced right now would probably be too little back in those days. Or, they'd be focusing, certain ones would be runaway successes because so many people were purchasing them.
Yeah.
Versus now, you could have a game that's great, but the numbers aren't going to be as high as then. Because people are cutting back still.
Damn, I can't find this Lawbreakers footage.
I'm trying to remember what year,
it was 2017. It had to have been. Yeah. Yeah, whatever.
But yeah, they had huge banners. It was a big deal. Like
we may have not recorded any video. We didn't do an interview. I wonder if we just didn't record anything.
I don't think we recorded that in the background. I remember we did some interviews, but not with them.
Damn. I do have some videos of. I have that interview that Lance did with the guy from Quake.
Oh yeah,
you remember this beauty?
Yeah. So yeah, but that we were set up to interview one of the founders of id Software.
Yeah.
And at the last second, they pulled him away because he got pulled into an interview with PC Gamer or something stupid, right?
Yeah.
And so they turned around and they said, "Oh, well, you have your interview with this other guy." And we were just like, "Well, this guy doesn't know. This is not the interview we wanted." So we had Lance do it. It went great.
Yeah, we're playing some VR.
There you go. Good old VR. This is where a good Newegg notebook came from for predictions.
Is he the only one that plays? I think I played and I got sick.
Yeah, I don't think I played it. I think you guys played it and I didn't.
Yeah, I did it for a minute or two and I started getting nauseous. So, the good old days, Brian, when life was a lot simpler.
Yeah, when times were easy.
Yeah, the economy was good. Times were easy. There wasn't raging war in the Middle East. The southern border wasn't wide open. Things were pretty great. Now they suck.
Yep. Welcome back. All right. Is there anything else? Anything else you want to cover before we head it on out?
No, I think we're good to go. Where can folks find you online?
All right. Well, if you want to find me at Boise Computer on X, or you can go check me out at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Getter, Truth Social, or wherever else. Go and look it up. Or you can check out my blog, biteofattack.com. The easiest way, if you want to find us, is just go to Infection Podcast on the website. We've got to join us on Discord. That's a place where if you want to message Nick or I directly, really easy to do it there. Also have 11 ARC servers running on there if you're interested in playing some ARC. We've got a show news channel if you want to submit some links to review so that we can cover maybe a topic that you think we're missing. And a lot of other things you can do with some politics channels. If you want to watch the live show, you can do that through Twitch or YouTube, or the upload after the fact on Rumble. We also upload the audio versions of the podcast. At the lower right-hand side, there's a lot of platforms, devices, ways to listen to us there. If you are doing that, that means that the show notes for that particular episode have been uploaded. Just click on that particular episode, and there's a video and audio player built into that page, and then links for everything that we discussed throughout that live show. So it's a good way that if you're going to be listening, you can click and follow along, maybe go do a little deeper dive into what the discussion is there. And, of course, if you want to support us, there's a support menu option up top or infectionpodcast.com/support.
Yep, that is the way to go ahead and do that. Brian, thanks as always. Appreciate it. We'll be back either Monday or Wednesday of next week. Just keep an eye on your podcast app for that and our Discord server as well. If you want to check me out online, you can do so. I'm over on X at Nicholas M. Craig. That's where you can find me over there. And as Brian noted, our website, infectionpodcast.com. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for another episode. We will be with you here next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.